Chippy here from the Berserker Meadery. Hello. I'm going to do a little add-on for my Making a Mead series. I've gone through and watched some videos, not just of my people I've subscribed to, but to other videos that have appeared on making meads. If you watch the Making a Mead series, you'll see that I actually talk about honey and about not heating it, or heating a honey must up. There's no need to. I don't know where this idea of pasteurizing honey at 160, 175 degrees Fahrenheit for the Americans comes from. I really don't. If you buy shop bought honey, honey's pasteurized before it goes to the shop anyhow. If it's runny honey, it's not set. If it's runny honey, it's pasteurized before you get it. Pasteurized honey, when it's pasteurized, it's not the same way as milk or apples juice to stop the wild yeast fermenting. Pasteurized honey means it's warmed up to around 35 degrees to make it runny, so it can pass through the filtration systems to pull out the odd leg of a bee that's got glued. Yes, it happens. Big pollen grains that haven't been used. So the filtration pulls most of that out. Any bits of beeswax that have been left in after they've spun the honey. Tiny bits of beeswax. So pasteurising a honey at 35, 40 degrees, they pasteurise it to help it run through the filtration system that commercial honey is usually sold at. The other reason they pasteurise honey is to keep it runny longer on your shelf. So give the runniness a longer shelf life. And if you notice you buy honey that's slightly setting, runny honey, that's not a problem. All you've got to do is warm honey up. Just sit it in some hot, hand hot water. Just sit it in hand hot water and you'll watch it decrystallise. And it doesn't matter if it's crystallised and then crystals going in. They break down if the yeast will attack them. I've made mead with raw honey straight from a hive. Decapped the comb, we've spun the combs, and we've put the honey straight from that bucket into the must and made a mead. Never had an infection. You'll not get an infection from a wild yeast inside honey, because the moisture content of honey is usually down below 18%. Secondly, your wine yeasts that you use, the commercial yeasts, are much more aggressive. Them strains have been isolated, and over time they've become so strong. And they're harvested and then they're freeze dried if you use dry yeast. Those strains are very, very strong and aggressive compared to a wild yeast. Now, nectar, when the bees collect the nectar, they have got certain yeasts on, and they're called osmophilic yeasts is the word. Those yeasts are so weak compared to any wine yeast. They're outcompeted, so there's no need to pasteurize. If you're making a melomel, if you want to heat your fruit up, that's fine. If you're worried about wild yeast on fruit, which can happen. If you're buying shop frozen fruit, most of that fruit would have been sprayed with a metabisulfate solution or washed in that solution, then rinsed before freezing. Most fruit. If it's frozen, it's been treated. If you're picking or buying fresh fruit, so like you go to pick your own raspberry farm, like I've done on occasion. If you're picking your own fruit, then yeah, wash it, put a on a candle and tab it 24 hours, rinse that off, and then put it on Pastuerize for another 24 hours before you rack onto your fruit. When I make a melomel, I make my base mead first, and here's the reason why. This is the way I was told, and I used to go to Barsley Abbey, and I learnt about mead making from there, and then the beekeeping and everything. So I'm a beekeeper. tend to know about the honey, and there's no need to heat your honey. Seriously, there isn't. But making a melomel, the best way to make a melomel, I've been told, and I've always done this, is make your base mead first. So if you made a base mead of £3 per gallon, pretty good mead. If you make a base mead of £3 per gallon and leave it for a month, then rack it on to your fruit, the alcohol in your mead is now going to strip out the colour. Also helps carry the yeast and strip out the sugars from each of the cells. That's why we freeze fruit, it helps it break down the cellular level, so the sugars inside each cell can be accessed by the yeast. That's why I mash mine. Freeze it, bring it out and mash it. It just makes the fruit more accessible. The alcohol will carry the yeast into the nooks and crannies, a thinner liquid. So when you rack it, you're going to strip out your colour, you're going to pull out the flavours of the fruit, and the yeast will then attack the sugars in the fruit, making more alcohol, which we like. So making a melomel, if you make your base mead first, you don't tend to necessarily need as much fruit. Or if you put the same fruit in, you're going to draw out a lot more of the flavour, a lot more of the moisture. Because the fermentation is now come down, the fermentation will go up again, but because it's come down, it's not so aggressive. You don't lose as much of the aroma and the flavour and the colour of the fruit. That's why if I do a melomel, especially with something like cherries or raspberries, I use an Arbonne yeast. It's more gentle. Start your mead off a month with Arbonne. If you're using D47, which is I think that's Cote de Rhone, that's more aggressive. And because it's more aggressive, it does leave it slightly drier, but bring it back. If you let the mead go first and then rack onto your fruit, you won't lose as much. If you put your fruit straight away in when you make a mead, you'll lose more of your aroma and flavour, so you have to put more in, and puts the cost up. But by racking onto your fruit with a month-old mead, you'll pull out all the goodness and the flavours and the colour. You'll strip it out much better out of the fruit. After 2 months, which is a long time, but 2 months is what I normally go. So 1 month make your mead, 2 months rack off your fruit. And it doesn't matter if you pour a bit of sediment or yeast in. You've got Pastuerize. When you do your fruit, sit it on Pastuerize for a day, and then rack into your fruit. So your Pastuerize is your clearing agent anyhow, so you can rack off that, let it clear. Now another way to help let it clear, because remember it's still fermenting at this time, the longer chain sugars are breaking down, or the mid-chain sugars. Short chain sugars are gone, it's the mid-range now. You're now bringing in those sugars to ferment, so it's still fermenting, but very, very gently. Now to help let that go for 2 months, your longer chain sugars are starting to break down. Now before you rack that time, degas your mead. You can degas it with a wand. I don't like them because they bring in some oxygen. They can bring in oxygen. The way I like to do it is I used to use a bleeding handle gun. So you put the pipe onto your demijohn, and it's for bleeding brakes, about 16 quid, and just create a vacuum. Or use a food saver, which I've got, and it's got an adapter for doing containers. You can put that in to your bung, a couple of pipes, put that onto your bung on top of your carboid, create a vacuum. You will pull out so much more gas, and you watch the sediment drop. So degas it, leave it 7 days, then rack again. You'll find it's a lot clearer. You can chill haze, and then you can, if you have to, you can cold press. You can use bentonite for melomels. Isn't very good. Sizes, yes, it's okay. Meads, it's okay. It doesn't, but bentonite can strip colour and flavours out. Also, if you've got Pastuerize, the Pastuerize has done its work, then use your bentonite at the end. Some people put bentonite at the beginning with fruit melomels. you don't want to do that because bentonite and petrolase work against each other, so it cancels the effect. So you still got murky mead. Use the bentonite at the end if you have to, but if you create that vacuum and degas it, 90% of that sediment's going to drop straight away anyhow. When you go to bottle your mead, you can't pass it through a filter, or you can rack through a filter. 30 micron in-house line, 1/4 inch BSPs, and rack through a household water filter with a sediment filter of 30 microns is pretty good. You can go down to 10 microns depending on your mead and what you want, but 30 microns is pretty good. It's going to pull out a lot of stuff if there's anything left. 10, I would use 10 probably. There are lots of options to do, cheap ways of passing your mead through a filter without stripping flavours, without stripping colour. Lots of different ways. Have a look online. I guarantee you someone's done that before. I use, like I said, I've got a food saver, I've got my brake bleeding gun, which is great because it's the same height size hose which can run straight off a carboy airline. Standard 1/4 inch, 3/8, it's 1/4 inch I think, 6mm airline. Just put that on and suck, create a vacuum, draw out the gas, and leave it for a week, and then you can rack off, and it's quite surprising how much sediment you get out. Leave it another month if you want to bottle it straight away and age it in the bottle, or you can bulk age it. But really about 6 to 7 months for a melomel is really good. If you try to bottle it any closer than that, you're going to get a problem of gas building up because you're still going to be fermenting long chain sugars. So if you keep racking, so like 1 make your mead, 2 rack, so you've got 3 series of racks. You can even go for a 4th depending on your mead. But if you go for 3 series of rackings, you're likely to get a clear, nice flavoured mead. If you add potassium sulfate and back-sweetening, measure your honey sugar level. It's quite easy. You take 10 grams of honey to 100 grams, 100 milliliter test tube of water, dilute it, and then put your hydrometer in. So whatever your units are, you calculate what your sugar level your thing is, and then you'll know how much to back-sweeten it by. Work with calculations. I'll try and do some of the stuff where I'll put up a video with how to calculate where to back-sweeten to. But if you know your yeast, you can roughly try and work so you overpower yeast to get that residual sweetness. You don't have to do it a lot, just a little bit, and it will stop it drying out too much. So that's my little bit of advice on certain mead making and the heating musts. I've never heated a must. I never will, and I've never had a problem. And I've been doing this since mid-80s. So, and yeah, that's why I got my mead master. You know, I'm a master of the meads. That's not a joke. That is a title. You get people called master of the meads because they've done it so long. They know what their ingredients are there, and how sugars work, how honeys work, and how yeasts work. That's my advice. There's no need to heat your musts. Make your base mead first, then do your melomel, then rack it onto your fruit. That's all for now. I will come back because making a mead is like a long process. It's not finished. I'm going to come back with certain things that I've seen and comments on. I'm not going to comment on videos saying, oh, that's wrong with that. I'm just going to come back and say, oh, if there's a lot of people doing something, I will say, I'll make a little video saying why I think it's wrong or right, or it's just a general thing. So this is an add-on to making a mead, and maybe I've not covered it properly. I've got a decent sound system now. So I will go back and talk about honeys and the sugars within them and the yeasts with a bit more detail, because people are making meads and melomels, and yeah, I'm just going to pass on my knowledge, what I know, what I learned from guys that were 60, 70, 80 years old. And they were passing that to me. So that's a lot of information. And I learnt it, and it's time to pass that on. So I hope you keep watching. Please subscribe if you, even if you just want to watch the making of the mead series. You don't have to watch all the videos and the beer reviews and such. But if you're making meads, please subscribe. There will be more coming up. Thank you.